Hello there, and welcome to the AstroSleep channel. I am so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you have had a long day filled with noise and demands, or maybe you are simply the kind of person who finds comfort in the vast, silent machinery of the universe. Tonight, we are not looking for excitement, nor are we seeking the thrill of discovery. We are here for something much deeper and much quieter. We are here to drift through the stillness of our solar system, to observe the slow, majestic dance of the planets as they turn in the dark. We often think of space as a place of exploration, but tonight we will treat it as a sanctuary, a place where time stretches out so thinly that it almost seems to stop. We're going to engage in what we might call boring science. The kind of science that does not startle or surprise, but instead offers a reliable, heavy comfort. We will look at the planets not as chaotic worlds of storms and fire, but as ancient, steady companions that have been circling the same path for billions of years. There is a profound peace in knowing that while our lives on Earth change day by day, these giant spheres continue their endless, silent orbits with perfect precision. They do not worry. They simply exist, suspended in the velvet wrap of the cosmos, following the laws of gravity with a calm, unwavering obedience. Tonight, we will travel from the warm heart of our system all the way to the frozen, silent edges. We will witness the slow rotation of stone and gas, the drifting of dust, and the deep, abiding shadows that stretch across the vacuum. It is a journey designed to be long, unhurried, and deeply monotonous in the most beautiful way possible. We want to let the sheer scale of these worlds press down on us, not to crush us, but to act as a weighted blanket for the mind, grounding us in the reality that the universe is vast, slow, and incredibly patient. If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind, it helps other sleepy souls find their way here too. And now, there is nothing left for you to do but rest. The day is behind you, sealed away in the past, and tomorrow is still waiting far beyond the horizon. For this moment, you are safe, and you are free from any obligation. I invite you to find a comfortable position, perhaps adjusting your pillow or the covers until you feel completely supported. Let your body begin to settle into the mattress, feeling the points of contact where you are held up, and allow your muscles to soften. Imagine that gravity is gently increasing its pull, not in a way that feels heavy, but in a way that feels grounding. It invites your shoulders to drop away from your ears, releasing the tension you have been carrying. It invites your jaw to unclench and your forehead to smooth out, erasing the lines of concentration. Let your hands rest loosely, open and relaxed, as if they are floating in water. Turn your attention to your breath. Do not try to change it or force it into a pattern. Just observe the natural, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest. It is like the tide of a calm ocean rolling in and rolling out, effortless and consistent. With every exhale, imagine that you are releasing a little more weight, sinking a little deeper into the surface beneath you. The air in the room is still, and the world outside your window has grown quiet. You are creating a bubble of peace around yourself, a personal observatory from which we will watch the cosmos. As you continue to breathe slowly, imagine that the ceiling above you begins to dissolve. It fades away, revealing a clear, dark night sky, rich with the soft glow of infinite stars. You are not cold. The air is perfectly tempered, comfortable, and soothing. You feel a gentle sensation of lifting, as if your bed has become a raft, floating upwards, lighter than air. You are rising slowly, leaving the roof, the trees, and the streets far below. The lights of the city blur and fade, until they are nothing more than a faint, warm haze. You are drifting higher, passing through the thin veil of clouds, entering the upper atmosphere, where the sky turns from a deep indigo to the pure, absolute black of space. Here, there is no sound. The wind does not blow. The birds do not sing. There is only the profound, expansive silence of the void. It is a silence that feels thick and protective, wrapping around you like a soft, dark velvet cloak. You are safe here, floating in the suspension of zero gravity, weightless and free. From this vantage point, you can see the solar system laid out before you, not as a diagram in a book, but as a vast living mobile, turning with agonizing slowness. It is a clockwork mechanism of immense proportions, where the gears are made of rock and gas, and the pendulum swings over millions of years. We are going to visit each part of this mechanism, observing the quiet details, the boring consistencies, and the peaceful emptiness that lies between them. We will take our time. There is no rush to get to the next destination. We have all the time in the world, and all the time in the universe. Let your mind align with this slow pace. Let your thoughts decelerate until they match the drift of a distant moon. You are a traveler of the quiet, a spectator of the slow. Let us begin our journey at the center, at the anchor that holds us all in this gentle, gravitational embrace. There is a singular glowing point that anchors our entire existence, a celestial hearth that burns with a steadiness so profound it defines the very concept of time for us. As we drift closer to the center of our solar system, we do not find a chaotic explosion, but rather a perfect radiant sphere of white and yellow light, hanging motionless in the great dark void. This is our sun, a star of the main sequence, a designation that implies a long, stable, and uneventful life. To the human eye, it appears as a flat disk of fire, but here, in the quiet of space, we can sense its true three-dimensional nature, a massive ball of plasma that is heavy with history and substance. The sun holds court over the solar system not through force. It contains more than 90% of all the mass in our entire neighborhood, a statistic that is difficult to comprehend, but easy to feel. This immense mass creates a deep valley in the fabric of space-time, a gravitational well that is so profound that everything else, the planets, the asteroids, the comets, and the dust, simply rolls around the rim of it. We are not being pulled violently. We are simply caught in the gentle, endless curve of the sun's presence. Gravity in this sense is not a tether or a chain, but a shape, a geometry of the void that guides us in a circle that has no beginning and no end. The galaxy holds together because of something we cannot see, and our solar system is no different. The gravity of the sun acts as a silent, invisible hand, a constant and unwavering embrace that reaches out across billions of miles of emptiness. It is a force of infinite patience. It does not fluctuate or waver. It simply is. It holds the Earth in its habitable zone with the precision of a master clockmaker, ensuring that we never drift too far into the cold or fall too close to the heat. This invisible scaffolding holds everything in place, creating a sanctuary of order in a universe that is often defined by chaos. It allows us to rest, knowing that the ground beneath us is part of a planet that is securely held by a star that is not going anywhere. Deep within the core of this star, a process is unfolding that is the definition of slow, enduring power. We often think of nuclear fusion as a violent event, but on the scale of the sun, it is a steady, rhythmic transformation. The pressure here is unimaginable, a crushing weight of gas that forces hydrogen atoms to merge into helium. It is a crowded, dense environment where particles are pressed together until they become one. releasing a tiny pulse of energy in the process. This is not a sudden detonation, but a continuous simmering burn that has been sustaining itself for 4.5 billion years. It is a fire that does not consume itself quickly, but rations its fuel with a miser's discipline, ensuring that it will continue to shine for another 4 billion years or more. There is a journey taking place inside the Sun that is perhaps the most tedious and lengthy travel story in the cosmos. When a photon, a particle of light, is born in the core, it cannot simply fly out into space. The interior of the Sun is so dense, packed so tightly with plasma, that the photon can only travel a tiny fraction of an inch before it bumps into another particle and is scattered in a new direction. This happens again and again, trillions upon trillions of times. The photon bounces aimlessly, zigging and zagging in a chaotic dance known as the random walk. It is trapped in a glowing fog, unable to find the exit. Astronomers calculate that it can take anywhere from tens of thousands to over 100,000 years for a single particle of light to migrate from the core to the surface. Think of the patience required for such a journey. The light that is warming your face on a sunny afternoon was actually created during the time of the last ice age, or perhaps when early humans were first migrating out of Africa. It has been wandering through the dense, hot belly of the star for eons, waiting for its moment of release. And when it finally breaks free from the surface, it crosses the vast distance to Earth in just 8 minutes. A sudden sprint after a marathon that lasted for millennia. In this light, we see a universe that values the slow accumulation of time, where energy is not made in an instant. As we observe the surface of the Sun, known as the photosphere, we see that it is not a smooth painted circle, but a texture of shifting golden grains. These are granules, the tops of massive convection cells where hot plasma rises, cools and sinks back down. It resembles the surface of a simmering pot of honey, moving with a languid, viscous slowness. Each of these granules is the size of a country like France or Texas, yet they rise and fall in a hypnotic, silent rhythm. It is a landscape of fluid motion, a vast ocean of fire that loops over and over again, recycling its heat in a pattern that is both complex and deeply repetitive. Sometimes the perfect brilliance of the surface is interrupted by dark blemishes. These are not holes, but islands of magnetism. Regions where the magnetic field is so strong that it prevents the hot gas from rising to the surface. Because the gas is trapped below, the surface cools down and appears dark against the surrounding brilliance. These spots are quieter, cooler regions, calm lakes in the midst of the plasma sea. They can drift across the face of the Sun for weeks or months, slowly changing shape, merging and separating, like clouds on a windless day. Watching a sunspot track across the solar disk is like watching the hour hand of a clock. The movement is imperceptible from moment to moment, yet undeniably constant. Extending far beyond the visible surface is the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that flows outward in all directions. It is the breath of the Sun, exhaled into the vacuum. This wind is not a gust that rattles windows, but a tenuous, ghostly river of ions that washes over the planets. It creates a vast bubble around our solar system called the heliosphere, pushing back against the interstellar medium. We are living inside the atmosphere of our star, protected by this constant outward pressure. It shields us from the high-energy cosmic rays of the galaxy, wrapping the entire solar family in a protective magnetic cocoon. It is a boundary that defines where home ends and the true deep unknown begins. There are moments when the Sun seems to stretch its arms, releasing loops of plasma, known as prominences. These great arches of glowing gas follow magnetic field lines, rising high above the surface and then raining back down in slow motion. Because the gravity of the Sun is so strong, 28 times stronger than Earth's gravity, the material does not fly away easily. It hangs suspended in the void, tracing the invisible curves of magnetism like glowing red neon tubes. These structures can last for days or weeks, statues of fire, frozen in a delicate balancing act between the outward pressure of heat and the inward pull of gravity. They are monuments to the equilibrium that governs the star, a balance between expansion and collapse that has held firm since the birth of the system. This balance is the essence of the Sun's quiet authority. It is in a state of hydrostatic equilibrium, a fancy term that simply means it has found its perfect size and is sticking to it. It is not shrinking, and it is not growing. It is content. It sits in the center of the void, radiating its energy with a consistency that allows life to flourish on a small blue rock 93 million miles away. It does not demand attention, it simply provides the conditions for existence. It is the silent conductor of the planetary orchestra, keeping time with a baton made of gravity, ensuring that every world enters and exits its season on cue. As we drift here, suspended in the safety of its gravitational field, we are not falling endlessly into a bottomless pit. We are orbiting. To orbit is to fall forever without ever hitting the ground, a state of permanent suspension where the forces of motion and gravity cancel each other out perfectly. It is a feeling of weightlessness, of surrendering control to a physics that is much larger and older than we are. The Sun carries us through the galaxy as it orbits the galactic center, dragging the planets along in its wake like a mother duck leading her ducklings across a pond. We are passengers on a vessel made of gravity, protected by a hull of solar wind, traveling through the dark at speeds we cannot feel, towards a destination we will never reach. The light from the Sun bathes the planets in a constant cycle of day and night, but the Sun itself knows no shadow. It is perpetual noon, a realm of eternal day. Yet even in this brightness, there is a sense of rest. The burning is not a struggle, it is a state of being. The gravity is not a cage, it is a home. As we look at this great golden anchor, we realize that we are looking at the source of our own stability. We are made of the same atoms that were forged in stellar cores, arranged in a pattern that can think, breathe, and wonder. We are, in a very real sense, small pieces of the Sun that have cooled down, stood up, and looked back at where we came from. The silence here is absolute. The roar of the fusion, the crackle of the magnetic fields, the whistle of the solar wind, none of it travels through the vacuum. To our ears, the Sun is completely mute. It burns in total silence, a massive, powerful presence that requires no voice to assert its dominance. It is the ultimate example of power under control, of energy at rest within its own flow. It teaches us that one can be radiant without being loud, that one can be powerful without being aggressive, and that one can hold an entire system together simply by remaining centered and calm. And so, we leave the immediate vicinity of this great star, letting its gravity gently guide us outward. We are moving away from the heat, drifting towards the first of the rocky worlds. The Sun remains behind us, a steady lighthouse in the rearview mirror of our minds, growing slightly smaller but never less significant. We are carried by the invisible current of its influence, drifting slowly, peacefully towards the grey, cratered silence of the innermost planet. Leaving the immense golden atmosphere of the Sun, we drift outward into the deeper silence, crossing millions of miles of empty space until a small, grey silhouette emerges against the backdrop of stars. This is Mercury, the first traveler. It hangs in the void like a quiet stone marble, scorched by proximity, yet wrapped in a profound, unchanging stillness. It is a world that has been stripped of all excess, a planet of rock and iron that hides its secrets in the long dark shadows of its craters. Here, we find a place where time behaves in a way that feels dreamlike and disjointed. A realm where the rhythms of day and night are stretched to the very limits of endurance. Mercury is often misunderstood as a frantic world because it orbits the Sun with such incredible speed, completing a full circle in just 80 to 80 Earth days. It rushes through space, eager to finish its year, constantly falling around the star that gave it birth. However, while its journey around the Sun is swift, its own rotation is agonizingly slow. It spins on its axis with the heavy, lethargic movement of a deep sleeper refusing to wake. It takes 59 Earth days for Mercury to turn just once. This creates a unique resonance, a gravitational lock that results in one of the strangest days in the cosmos. If you were to stand on the surface, from one sunrise to the next, a full solar day would last 176 Earth days. Imagine a single day that stretches on for months, a sun that rises and seemingly refuses to set, hanging in the sky like a suspended lantern for weeks on end. This extreme slowness creates a world of deep binary contrasts, a place of light and a place of dark, separated by a terminator line that creeps across the landscape at a walking pace. The rocks bake in the silence, expanding under the heat, but they do not crack or crumble with violence. They simply endure. The light is harsh and unfiltered, casting sharp, distinct shadows that look as if they have been cut out of black paper. There is no atmosphere to scatter the light, no blue sky to soften the view. Even when the sun is blazing overhead, the sky remains a deep, starry black. It is a surreal sight. A noon that looks like midnight, a bright landscape set against an infinite dark ceiling. As we drift over the surface, we see a terrain that remembers everything. Mercury is covered in craters, vast basins, and smooth plains of solidified lava. Unlike Earth, where wind, rain, and vegetation constantly erase the past, Mercury keeps a perfect record of its history. Every impact that has happened over billions of years is still there, preserved in the vacuum. A stone that rolled down a hill 3 billion years ago still lies exactly where it stopped. A footprint left in the dust today would remain unchanged for eternity, undisturbed by any breeze or storm. It is a museum of the early solar system, a static library of stone where nothing ever moves, nothing ever changes, and nothing is ever forgotten. The silence here is heavier than anywhere else. On Earth, silence is just a pause between sounds, but on Mercury, silence is the only reality. There is virtually no atmosphere to carry sound waves. If a meteor were to strike the ground, it would do so in total silence. The rocks would shatter, the dust would plume upwards, and the ground would shake, but there would be no roar, no crash, no echo. It is a silent film of geology, played out on a loop for eons. The lack of air also means there is no weather. There are no clouds to watch, no storms to track, no gentle rains to listen to. There is only the vacuum, pressing down on the grey dust, holding everything in a grip of absolute stillness. Some parts of this planet are older than the surface itself. We drift towards the Uranus Basin, one of the largest impact craters in the solar system. It is a vast circular scar, filled with smooth plains that look like frozen seas of grey rock. It is a monument to a collision that happened nearly 4 billion years ago. A moment of violence that has long since settled into peace. Now it is just another quiet feature on a quiet world, a bowl of dust measuring nearly 1,000 miles across. The shockwaves from that ancient event rippled through the entire planet, creating weird terrain on the exact opposite side of the world. A jumbled, chaotic landscape that has been frozen in time ever since. As the long day slowly transitions to the long night, the temperature plummets. Without a blanket of air to trap the heat, the warmth escapes instantly into space. the surface turns from a baking oven to a deep freeze in a matter of moments. This is the dark side of Mercury, a realm of shadow that lasts for months. Here, the ground contracts in the cold, settling into a hibernation that is deep and undisturbed. The darkness is absolute, save for the starlight and the faint, ghostly glow of the Milky Way stretching overhead. It is a peaceful darkness, a respite from the blinding intensity of the sunward side. In this shadow, the planet rests, cooling down, waiting patiently for the distant dawn that is still weeks away. There is a secret hidden within this world of fire and rock. As we drift towards the poles, we look down into the bottoms of deep craters that have never seen the sun. Because Mercury has almost no axial tilt, standing perfectly upright as it spins, the floors of these polar craters are in permanent shadow. They are the cold traps, places of eternal night. And there, hidden in the deepest dark, we find ice. It seems impossible on a planet so close to the sun, but there are vast deposits of water ice, frozen solid and protected by the shadows. These are ancient reservoirs, likely delivered by comets billions of years ago, resting there in the quiet dark, untouched by the heat, sleeping a sleep that has lasted for ages. It is a beautiful contradiction, a hidden winter buried in the heart of the fire. The surface of Mercury is also marked by long, winding cliffs called scarps. As the planet's iron core slowly cooled and contracted over billions of years, the crust wrinkled like the skin of a drying apple. These cliffs stretch for hundreds of miles, silent walls of rock that rise thousands of feet into the black sky. They are evidence of the planet shrinking, folding in on itself in a slow geological hug. This process happens so gradually that it is imperceptible. It is a movement measured not in years, but in epochs. The planet is settling, growing smaller and denser, pulling its blanket of rock tighter around its heavy metal heart. To stand on Mercury is to witness the universe in its rawest form. The sun appears 3 times larger than it does on Earth, a massive, dominating presence that commands the sky. Yet, because of the planet's elliptical orbit and slow rotation, the sun performs a strange dance. At certain points on the surface, you could watch the sun rise, stop in the sky, move backward for a while, and then move forward again. It is a celestial hesitation, a pause in the cosmic clockwork. It reminds us that time is not a rigid line, but a fluid experience, shaped by gravity and motion. On Mercury, time loiters. It takes its leisure. It does not rush the day to get to the night, nor does it hurry the night to find the morning. Even the color of the planet speaks of boredom and rest. It is not the vibrant blue of Earth, nor the angry red of Mars. It is grey, graphite, charcoal, slate, and ash. It is a monochrome world, simple and unadorned. This lack of color is soothing to the mind. There are no patterns to decipher, no vibrant hues to stimulate the senses. It is just the simple, honest texture of rock and dust, repeated mile after mile. It is a visual white noise, a landscape that demands nothing from you, asking only to be observed in its stillness. The gravity here is gentle, about 1/3 of what we feel on Earth. If you were to walk across these grey plains, you would move with a floating, bounding grace. You would feel light, unburdened, as if the planet itself were helping you lift your feet. You could jump high into the black sky and float down slowly, settling back onto the dust like a feather. This lightness adds to the dreamlike quality of the world. It is a place where heaviness is lifted, where the burdens of weight and speed are replaced by buoyancy and slowness. Drifting further, we notice the hollows, strange, shallow depressions in the rock that look like Swiss cheese. These are mysterious features where the rock has simply sublimated, turning from solid directly into gas and vanishing into space. It is a slow evaporation of the ground itself, a quiet disappearance of matter. The planet is slowly exhaling parts of its surface into the void, a process so subtle that it leaves behind these delicate, ghostly pits. They are scars of sublimation, evidence that even rocks can fade away given enough time and enough silence. Mercury is a hermit, a solitary monk circling the fire. It has no moons to keep it company, no rings to adorn it. It travels alone. The solitude is not lonely, it is complete. It does not need a companion to define its orbit. It is self-contained, content in its long, slow days and its deep, freezing nights. It teaches us the value of solitude, of being alone with the silence, of finding a rhythm that is yours, and yours alone, regardless of how the rest of the universe spins. As we prepare to leave this grey world, we take one last look at the long shadows stretching across the craters. We leave the ice sleeping in the dark poles. We leave the dust undisturbed. We have witnessed the planet of the long sleep, the world where the sun hesitates and the silence is absolute. We let gravity take us again, pulling us gently outward, away from the intense glare of the central star. We are drifting towards a world that is wrapped in clouds, a place where the air is thick and the mystery is hidden beneath a veil of white. Mercury fades behind us, a small grey pearl returning to its slumber, and we turn our gaze toward the bright, clouded mystery of Venus. We leave the grey silence of Mercury behind, allowing the gentle current of gravity to carry us further outward, towards a world that shines like a polished jewel in the dark. Ahead of us lies Venus, a planet often called Earth's twin, though it is a sibling that has chosen a path of absolute solitude and concealment. From a distance it appears as a perfect, flawless sphere of creamy white. It is the morning star and the evening star, a beacon that has guided weary travelers and dreamers for millennia. But here, up close, we see it not as a star, but as a world wrapped entirely in a thick, unbroken veil. There are no oceans visible, no green continents, no polar ice caps. There is only the endless, swirling layer of clouds, a curtain that has been drawn across the face of the planet, never to be opened. This is a world of secrets, hidden beneath a blanket of atmosphere so heavy and so deep that it creates a realm of perpetual twilight. As we sink slowly into the upper atmosphere, we are not met with the transparency of space, but with a dense, foggy suspension. The clouds here are not made of water vapor like the gentle cumulus clouds of Earth, but of sulfur and carbon, woven together into a thick, reflective tapestry. They do not part to reveal the ground below. They form a global superrotation, racing around the planet much faster than the planet itself spins, a high-altitude river of wind that circles the globe in just 4 Earth days. Yet, as we descend through these layers, the speed fades away, replaced by a stillness that grows heavier with every mile. The atmosphere of Venus is a masterpiece of density. It is 90 times thicker than the air on Earth. To exist on the surface of Venus is to be subjected to a pressure equivalent to being a kilometer deep beneath the ocean. Imagine resting at the bottom of a warm, deep sea, where the weight of the water presses against you from all sides. It is not a crushing force in this context, but a firm, unyielding embrace. It is a hug from the air itself, a sensation of being held so tightly that movement becomes slow and deliberate. The air is so thick that it is almost a fluid. If you were to move your hand through it, you would feel the resistance, a tangible pushback against your skin. It is a world where the atmosphere does not just surround you, it holds you. Beneath the clouds, the light changes. The harsh, white glare of the sun is filtered out, diffused by the thick layers of gas, until it becomes a soft, glowing orange. On the surface of Venus, there are no sharp shadows. There is no direct sunlight hitting the rocks. Instead, the entire sky glows with a uniform amber luminescence. It is like standing in a room lit by a fireplace, or walking through a city during a heavy, foggy sunset that never ends. The light is omnidirectional, coming from everywhere at once, softening the edges of the jagged lava rocks, bathing the volcanic plains in a hazy, dreamlike gloom. It is a world without contrast, a landscape painted in sepia tones, where the eye can rest easily because there is nothing sharp to focus on. The temperature here is the most consistent thing in the solar system. While other planets fluctuate wildly between freezing nights and burning days, Venus maintains a steady, unwavering heat. The thick blanket of carbon dioxide traps the warmth with incredible efficiency, creating a runaway greenhouse effect that has reached a stable, eternal equilibrium. From the equator to the poles, from the day side to the night side, it is a global oven that never cools down. A place where the concept of weather simply does not apply. There are no cold fronts, no sudden storms, no changing seasons. There is only the heat, thick and constant, a permanent state of high energy, trapped in a slow-moving world. And it is in this movement, or lack thereof, that Venus truly reveals its sleepy nature. Venus is the rebel of the solar system, but it rebels in the quietest way possible. It spins backward. While almost every other planet rotates counterclockwise, Venus rotates clockwise, a phenomenon known as retrograde motion. It turns against the grain of the solar system, but it does so with such agonizing slowness that it barely seems to be moving at all. It is the slowest spinning object in our neighborhood. It takes Venus 243 Earth days to complete just one single rotation on its axis. Consider the implications of this speed. Venus orbits the Sun faster than it spins. It takes only 225 days to travel around the Sun. This means that a day on Venus is actually longer than a year on Venus. It is a paradox of time that boggles the mind but soothes the soul. The sun rises in the west and sets in the east, but you would have to wait nearly 4 Earth months from sunrise to sunset. If you were walking on the surface, you could easily walk faster than the rotation of the planet. You could literally outrun the sunset at a leisurely strolling pace. It is a world where the day is not a fleeting period of activity, but a vast, stretching era of light, followed by an equally long era of dark. The celestial clock here ticks so slowly that the movement of the stars across the sky would be imperceptible to the human eye. The surface of Venus is a vast museum of volcanism. It is covered in thousands of ancient volcanoes, from small shields to massive mountains that rival Everest. But unlike the explosive eruptions we might imagine, the geology of Venus seems to be one of slow, viscous flows. We see evidence of pancake domes, steep-sided volcanoes that formed when thick, sticky lava oozed out onto the surface and spread slowly in all directions, like honey poured on a table. These structures speak of a planet that reshapes itself not with a bang, but with a slow, heavy heave. The lava channels, some running for thousands of miles, show where molten rock once carved its way across the plains like a lazy river, moving with the sluggish determination of a glacier. There is a feature on Venus called tesserae, complex ridged terrains that look like tiled floors or wrinkled skin. These are some of the oldest parts of the crust, twisted and folded over billions of years of geological stress. They sit in silence, beaten by the heat and the pressure, motionless monuments to the planet's twisting history. Because there is no water to erode them and very little surface wind to wear them down, these formations remain sharp and pristine for eons. The wind speed at the surface is incredibly low, often clocking in at just a few miles per hour. It is less than a gentle breeze. In the thick air, this slow movement is enough to push dust and small stones, but it creates no howling, no whistling. It is a silent, creeping draft that moves the dense atmosphere around the planet in a sluggish cycle. We often look for Earth-like qualities in other planets, and in Venus, we find a distorted, dreamlike mirror. It has mountains, valleys, and continents, but they are dry and hot. It has an atmosphere, but it is too heavy to breathe. It has clouds, but they rain sulfuric acid. Droplets that fall from the upper decks, but evaporate long before they ever touch the ground. This phenomenon, called virga, creates ghostly streaks in the orange sky, rain that hangs suspended in the air, never reaching its destination. It is a cycle of precipitation that is purely atmospheric, a private conversation between the clouds and the heat. There is a profound sense of isolation here. The thick clouds block the view of the stars completely. If you were standing on the plains of Venus, you would never know that the rest of the universe exists. You would never see the Milky Way, never see the other planets, never even see the sun as a defined disk, just a bright patch in the haze. You would be enclosed in a world that consists entirely of itself, a bubble of orange light and grey rock. This isolation feels protective, like pulling the covers up over your head, shutting out the rest of the world to focus on the warmth and the stillness within. It is a place for introspection, for deep, uninterrupted rest, where the distractions of the cosmos are veiled by a ceiling that never breaks. The lack of a magnetic field means that the solar wind interacts directly with the upper atmosphere, slowly stripping away lighter elements, but down deep, near the surface, the planet is shielded by its own density. The air is a fortress. The weight is a blanket. The heat is a constant companion. Venus does not invite visitors. It is a world that has turned inward, wrapping itself in layers of mystery to preserve its solitude. It suggests that there is value in being hidden, in keeping one's true face veiled from the prying eyes of the galaxy. As we drift through this thick, amber fog, we feel the drag of the atmosphere slowing us down, matching our pace to the lethargic rotation of the ground below. We are floating in a sea of gas, suspended in the eternal twilight. There is no rush to leave, for time here has lost its meaning. A single day lasts for a significant portion of a human lifetime. Why hurry when the sun itself takes months to cross the sky? Why rush when the wind barely moves? Venus teaches us the art of the slow burn, the power of density, and the beauty of a world that refuses to reveal itself. But our journey must continue. We must rise up from the heavy embrace of the CO2 ocean, breaking through the cloud decks and returning to the clarity of space. As we ascend, the orange glow fades, replaced once again by the sharp, cold black of the void. We look back at the planet, seeing it once more as a beautiful white pearl, innocent and bright. We know now that its beauty hides a heavy, silent intensity, a world sleeping under a blanket of air that has not moved for 1 billion years. We turn away from the morning star, and we look outward. There, floating in the distance, is a sight that brings a different kind of peace. It is a small blue marble, swirling with white clouds and vast oceans. It is the only place in the system where water flows freely and where life sings. We are approaching our home, but we will view it tonight as strangers, observing it from the quiet safety of the drift. We leave the shrouded mystery of Venus behind, drifting through the dark, quiet corridor of space until a new light appears in the distance. It is not a burning star nor a grey rock, but a brilliant sapphire jewel suspended in the emptiness. This is Earth, our home. Seen not from the bustling streets or the busy cities, but from the silent sanctuary of the void. From this vantage point, there are no borders, no conflicts, and no noise. There is only the stunning interplay of blue water, white clouds, and green land, all wrapping around a sphere that turns with a perfect hypnotic rhythm. It hangs there, isolated and fragile, a singular drop of color in a universe that is mostly black and white. It is the only place we know of where the universe has opened its eyes to look at itself. Yet tonight, we observe it simply as a quiet object, a peaceful planet drifting in the habitable zone. Covering more than 70% of its surface, the global ocean reflects the sunlight with a deep, resonant blue that is visible from millions of miles away. Astronomers call this the glint, a specular reflection where the sun bounces off the smooth curve of the sea like light off a marble. This vast amount of liquid water exists because the planet sits at the perfect distance from the sun, in a narrow ring of warmth known as the Goldilocks zone. It is not too hot, like Venus, where water boils away, and not too cold, like Mars, where it freezes into stone. It is a realm of fluidity, where oceans can circulate and rivers can flow. In this endless blue, we see the symbol of adaptability and flow, reminding us that life at its core is about movement and softness. As we watch, we notice the planet is breathing. This is not the breath of lungs, but the slow, rhythmic inhalation and exhalation of light. The Earth rotates on its axis once every 24 hours, a cycle so consistent that it has become the metronome of our biology. This rotation is a relic of the planet's formation, a conservation of angular momentum that has kept it spinning for 4.5 billion years. As the terminator line, the border between day and night, sweeps across the continents, it brings a wave of waking and a wave of sleeping. It is a slow, creeping shadow that quiets the land, followed by a creeping light that warms it. Watching this cycle from space is like watching a sleeping child breathe. It is a gentle, repetitive motion that speaks of deep, restorative rest. It reminds us that darkness is not an end, but simply the other half of the rhythm, a necessary pause that allows the light to return. Wrapped around this blue sphere is a thin, delicate veil of gas. This is the atmosphere, a layer of nitrogen and oxygen that is incredibly thin compared to the size of the planet. If the Earth were the size of an apple, the atmosphere would be thinner than the skin of that apple. It is held in place by gravity, clinging to the surface like a fragile halo. From space, we see the edge of the world as a glowing blue line, a transition zone where the air fades into the vacuum. This thin line is the only thing shielding the surface from the cold harshness of space. It scatters the sunlight, painting the sky blue for those on the ground, but from here it looks like a soft, glowing aura. It is a visual reminder of protection, a soft barrier that cradles all life in a warm, pressurized embrace, keeping the silence of the void at bay. Floating within this atmosphere are the clouds. They are vast, white swirls of condensed water vapor, moving slowly across the face of the planet. They follow the invisible rivers of wind, driven by the heat of the sun and the rotation of the Earth. This is the Coriolis effect in action, a force that twists the winds into beautiful, spiraling patterns. From our high altitude, we do not see storms or hurricanes. We only see graceful, turning shapes, like milk stirred into a cup of dark tea. They morph and change with agonizing slowness, drifting over oceans and mountains without a sound. These white bands cloak the planet in a constantly changing mood, sometimes hiding the land, sometimes revealing it. They teach us that everything is transient. Even the greatest storms look like peaceful, silent swirls when viewed from a high enough perspective. There is a companion in this dance, a silent partner that watches over the blue world. We turn our gaze slightly to see the moon, a stark grey sphere that is tidally locked to Earth. It shows only one face to its parent planet, a sign of its unwavering devotion. The moon is responsible for the tides, the rising and falling of the Earth's oceans. Its gravity pulls on the water, creating a bulge that travels around the globe as the Earth spins beneath it. This is a planetary heartbeat, a rise and fall that happens twice a day, every day, without fail. It is a gravitational conversation between two worlds, a tug-of-war that has no winner, only a rhythmic, sloshing balance. In this relationship, we see the power of connection, how one silent body can move the oceans of another across 250,000 miles of emptiness. The Earth is not a perfect sphere. It is an oblate spheroid. Because it spins, it bulges slightly at the equator, like a ball of dough that has been flattened by its own rotation. This imperfection is subtle, but it tells the story of motion. The centrifugal force pushes the middle outward, fighting against the inward pull of gravity. It is a dynamic shape, a compromise between holding together and flying apart. This slight squashing is imperceptible to the eye, but it represents the balance of forces that governs all things. It is a reminder that nothing in nature is perfectly geometric, and that there is beauty in the slight deviations, in the shapes formed by the gentle pressures of existence. We can see the seasons changing as we watch the planet orbit the Sun. The Earth is tilted on its axis by 23.5 degrees, a jaunty angle that creates the rhythm of the year. As it travels its long elliptical path, the poles dip toward and away from the light. We see the white caps of ice at the north and south expand and retreat, breathing in and breathing out like slow, frozen lungs. This cycle takes 365 days to complete. It is a long, slow loop that ensures every part of the world gets its turn in the sun and its turn in the cold. It is a promise of renewal, a guarantee that winter will always turn to spring and that the wheel of time will keep turning. In this tilt, we find the reason for the diversity of our world, the shifting patterns that prevent existence from ever becoming stagnant. From this distance, the night side of Earth is particularly mesmerizing. We see the faint golden spiderwebs of city lights glowing softly in the dark, but we do not think of the noise or the people down there. Instead, we see them as bioluminescence, like the glow of deep-sea creatures in a dark ocean. They are static, silent points of light that mark the presence of life, quiet evidence that something is awake down there while the universe sleeps. They look fragile, like embers that could easily fade, evoking a sense of tenderness. It makes the Earth look like a decorated ornament, hanging on the branch of the solar system, twinkling gently against the backdrop of the true stars. It is a view that inspires not excitement, but a deep, protective affection. There is a magnetic field that surrounds the Earth, invisible to the eye but vital to its peace. Generated by the churning of molten iron in the planet's core, this magnetosphere extends far out into space, acting as a shield against the solar wind. If we could see it, it would look like a giant teardrop-shaped bubble, deflecting the stream of particles from the sun. It creates the auroras, the curtains of green and purple light that dance silently over the poles. These lights are the visual signature of a battle between the sun's energy and the Earth's shield. A battle that creates no sound and does no harm, only beauty. It is the planet's way of filtering the energy of the cosmos, taking what is harsh and turning it into a silent, glowing art form. As we drift further away, the details begin to blur. The continents lose their definitions. The clouds merge into the blue, and the Earth begins to shrink. It becomes smaller and smaller, until it is just a pale blue dot, a phrase famously used to describe its insignificance in the grand scale of the universe. But in this smallness, there is comfort. To be small is to be unburdened. To be a tiny speck in the dark is to be free from the need to control the vastness around you. The Earth is just a passenger, like us, riding the gravity of the sun, spinning in the dark, safe and quiet. It does not need to be the center of the universe to be significant. It just needs to be. The silence of space wraps around the planet. There is no sound of the crashing waves, no sound of the wind in the trees, no sound of the thunder. All of that is trapped beneath the atmosphere. Here, there is only the peace of observation. We are witnessing the home of humanity as a single, unified object, a peaceful marble rolling through the velvet night. It is a perspective that heals, washing away the stress of detail and replacing it with the calm of the whole. We bid farewell to this blue oasis. We let our gaze drift outward, past the orbit of the moon, turning our backs on the warmth of home. We are heading for the cold red silence of the next world. The blue light fades behind us, becoming a star among stars, and we face the rusty, dusty stillness of Mars. We drift away from the vibrant blue of Earth, leaving the comfort of our home behind as we venture deeper into the silence. Ahead of us, floating in the cold vacuum, is a world of rust and ochre. This is Mars, the red planet, a place that feels less like a celestial body and more like a vast ancient desert suspended in the night. From a distance, it glows with a soft ruddy hue, a color that reminds us of autumn leaves or the embers of a dying fire. It is a world that has paused, a planet where the geological clock seems to have stopped ticking billions of years ago. It hangs there in the darkness, a silent monument to what once was. The color of Mars is not a trick of the light. It is the color of time. The surface is covered in a fine layer of iron oxide dust, essentially rust, which coats the rocks and the plains in a uniform blanket of red. This oxidation tells a story of a slow chemical reaction that took place over eons. Iron in the soil reacted with the trace amounts of oxygen, turning the entire planet into a relic of antiquity. It is a world that has aged gracefully, wearing its history on its skin. The dust is incredibly fine, like talcum powder, and it settles over everything, smoothing out the jagged edges of the rocks, softening the landscape into rolling dunes and gentle hills. It is a scene of absolute stillness, where the redness speaks not of anger, but of a long, dry slumber. As we descend towards the surface, we pass through an atmosphere that is whisper thin. The air here is carbon dioxide, but it is so tenuous that the atmospheric pressure is less than 1% of Earth's. There is no heavy blanket to hold in the heat, no thick fluid to carry the sound. If you were to stand here, the silence would be profound. The wind does blow, but it is a thin, spectral wind, a breeze that pushes the dust around without the strength to truly roar. It creates a soft, hissing sound as it moves over the dunes, a sound like sand shifting in an hourglass. This thin air leaves the surface exposed to the cold of space. It is a dry, freezing cold that preserves everything it touches, freezing the rocks and the sand in a permanent state of preservation. Dominating one hemisphere of this quiet world is Olympus Mons, a volcano of such immense proportions that it defies our understanding of scale. It is the largest volcano in the entire solar system, standing 3 times taller than Mount Everest. Yet if you were to stand at its base, you would not feel small, because the mountain is so wide that its slope is barely noticeable. It stretches out for hundreds of miles, a gentle, rising shield of rock that curves slowly upward until it pierces the thin atmosphere. It is a sleeping giant, a geological titan that has not erupted for millions of years. It sits there in the silence, its fires long extinguished, its caldera open to the stars. It is a testament to patience, a mountain that grew slowly, layer by layer, until it simply stopped, content to rest as the highest point in the known worlds. Nearby, the crust of the planet has split open to form the Valles Marineris, a canyon system that makes the Grand Canyon look like a mere scratch. This is a vast scar that stretches across the face of Mars, a deep, winding valley where the shadow of the cliff walls travels slowly across the floor. It is a place of deep shadows and steep drops, carved not by rushing water, but by the cracking of the planet's crust as it cooled and settled. There is no sound of flowing water, no birds calling from the cliffs. There is only the deep, echoing emptiness of the void. The canyon stands as a frozen record of a time when the planet was shifting and settling, a dramatic event that has long since transitioned into a peaceful, static existence. There are dry riverbeds winding through the southern highlands, ghostly channels that meander across the plains. Billions of years ago, water may have flowed here, cutting through the rock, carrying sediment to ancient lakes. But now, the water is gone, lost to space or frozen deep underground. What remains are the memories of rivers, the empty paths where the fluid once traveled. They look like veins on a dried leaf, delicate and intricate patterns etched into the surface. These dry beds are beautiful in their emptiness. They remind us that movement is often temporary, but the path remains. The landscape holds the shape of the water long after the water has departed, preserving the flow in stone, a silent map of a wet past that has dried into a dusty present. Mars is a world of extreme cold, a desert of ice as well as rock. At the poles there are caps of water ice and frozen CO2, dry ice, that grow and shrink with the long Martian seasons. In the winter, the atmosphere itself freezes out, falling as carbon dioxide snow. Imagine a snow that does not melt into water, but sublimates directly back into gas when the sun returns. It is a gentle, phantom precipitation, a cycle of freezing and thawing that happens in slow motion. The polar layered deposits show distinct bands of dust and ice, like the rings of a tree recording the climate cycles of the planet over millions of years. These layers are a library of climate, stacked neatly and preserved by the cold, waiting in the dark for no one to read them. Occasionally the wind picks up enough speed to lift the dust into the sky, creating vast dust storms that can envelop the entire planet. While storm implies violence, on Mars it is more like a global haze, a softening of the light. The dust hangs in the air, turning the sky from a dark black to a soft creamy orange. It blocks out the sun, reducing the light to a dim twilight. During these events, the surface features disappear, hidden behind a veil of ochre fog. The planet wraps itself in a blanket of its own soil, retreating into privacy. These storms can last for months, a long, slow exhalation of the planet that blurs the line between the ground and the sky. When the dust finally settles, it does so gently, coating every rock and crater in a fresh layer of fine powder. Hitting the reset button on the landscape, we can see two small companions orbiting this lonely world. Phobos and Deimos are not majestic spheres like our moon. They are lumpy, irregular asteroids that were captured by Mars's gravity long ago. They look like potatoes floating in the dark. They are small and quiet, drifting in their orbits, with no geological activity of their own. Phobos orbits so close that it races across the Martian sky 3 times a day, while Deimos drifts far out, looking more like a bright star than a moon. They are silent witnesses to the planet's solitude, ancient rocks that have been caught in a gravitational dance, providing a sense of company in the vast emptiness. Their shadows race across the red dunes below, fleeting moments of darkness that break the monotony of the sunlit plains. The gravity on Mars is weaker than on Earth, only about 38% as strong. This lower gravity contributes to the feeling of suspension and lightness. If you were a rock falling from a cliff, you would fall slowly, drifting down with a lazy, dreamlike quality. The dust that is kicked up hangs in the air longer, refusing to settle, floating as if it is reluctant to return to the ground. This weak gravity makes the planet feel less oppressive, more open. It is a place where heaviness is reduced, where the burden of weight is lifted slightly, allowing everything to exist in a state of semi-buoyancy. There is a profound sense of loneliness on Mars, but it is a peaceful loneliness. It is the feeling of an empty house that has been closed up for the winter. The furniture is covered in sheets, the windows are shuttered, and the air is still. Mars is a planet that has finished its work. Its volcanoes are done erupting, its rivers are done flowing, its tectonic plates are done shifting. It has entered a state of retirement, a long, eternal rest where the only changes are the slow accumulation of dust and the seasonal frost. It teaches us that there is beauty in the aftermath, in the quiet that comes after the activity has ceased. It is a world that is comfortable with its own stillness, a place that does not need to change to be magnificent. The sunsets on Mars are legendary for their reversal of colors. On Earth, the day is blue and the sunset is red. On Mars, the day is red and the sunset is blue. As the distant small sun dips below the horizon, the dust in the atmosphere scatters the light to create a cool blue halo around the sun. It is a moment of unexpected serenity, a flash of cool color in a warm-toned world. The blue twilight lingers for a long time, a soft, melancholy farewell to the day. It is a reminder that even in a world of rust, there are moments of cool, soothing contrast, moments where the familiar laws of color are flipped to create a new kind of beauty. We drift over the Utopia Planitia, a vast, flat plain covered in rocks and ice underground. It is endless and repetitive, mile after mile of the same red stones, the same red dust. This repetition is hypnotic. There are no landmarks to grab your attention, nothing to break the visual flow. It is a visual mantra, a landscape that encourages the mind to stop seeking novelty and simply rest in the sameness. It is boring in the most therapeutic way possible. It allows the eyes to glaze over, the thoughts to slow down, matching the static nature of the terrain. As we prepare to leave the red planet, we take one last look at the silent volcanoes. We see a world that has found its final form, a masterpiece of desolation that will remain unchanged for eons to come. We leave the dust to drift in the thin wind. We leave the moons to their silent watch. We let the gravity of the sun pull us once again, moving us outward past the belt of rocks towards the giants of the outer system. Behind us, Mars fades into a small red star, a ruby in the night, sleeping its long, dry sleep. Ahead of us lies the vast darkness of the asteroid belt, a region of space where the planet that never was lies scattered in pieces. We drift forward into the field of floating stones. We drift away from the red, dusty solitude of Mars, allowing the gentle pull of our momentum to carry us outward into a region of space that has long captured the imagination of storytellers. Ahead lies the main asteroid belt, a vast torus of stone and ice that circles the Sun between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. In the movies of our minds, this place is often depicted as a chaotic, crowded field of tumbling boulders, a dangerous gauntlet where rocks are constantly crashing into one another in a violent frenzy. But here, in the quiet reality of the cosmos, we find a realm of immense, overwhelming emptiness. The asteroid belt is not a wall of stone. It is a sea of silence where the islands are separated by millions of miles of black water. The distances here are so vast that they defy human intuition. If you were to stand on the surface of an average asteroid in the middle of the belt, you would look out into the universe and see nothing but stars. You would not see a swarm of rocks surrounding you. You would not see neighboring asteroids floating nearby. The nearest asteroid would likely be so far away that it would appear as nothing more than a faint, wandering point of light, indistinguishable from the distant stars to the naked eye. The volume of space occupied by the belt is enormous, and the material within it is spread so thinly that a spacecraft can fly straight through it without ever running the risk of hitting anything. It is a highway of the void, open and clear, where the traffic is so sparse that every traveler feels completely alone. These rocky remnants are the leftovers of the solar system's formation, the building blocks that never quite managed to become a planet. They are the crumbs of creation, preserved in the deep freeze of space for 4.5 billion years. We drift past them slowly, observing their shapes. They are not perfect spheres like the planets. They are irregular, lumpy, and scarred. They look like giant potatoes, shards of flint, or piles of rubble loosely held together by their own weak gravity. They are the imperfections of the universe, and in their irregularity, there is a raw, unpolished beauty. They are the unprocessed history of our origins, floating in a museum without walls, untouched by wind or rain, preserving the very earliest moments of our cosmic story in their grey, dusty regolith. Most of these wanderers are incredibly dark. We call them C-type asteroids, rich in carbon, dark as charcoal. They reflect almost no light, moving through the blackness like shadows within shadows. To see them, one must look closely, for they do not shine. They simply exist. They absorb the sunlight, holding onto the faint warmth of the distant star. They are the silent monks of the belt, dressed in robes of black dust, orbiting in a procession that has no end. Their surfaces are covered in craters, ancient scars from a more violent time eons ago. But now, those craters are just quiet valleys of shadow, places where the dust has settled and remained undisturbed for longer than life has existed on Earth. Drifting deeper into this sparse archipelago, we approach the Queen of the Belt, the dwarf planet Ceres. It is the only object here large enough to be shaped into a sphere by its own gravity. It is a miniature world, a globe of rock and ice that spins alone in the dark. As we glide over its surface, we see that it is not a dead rock, but a world of hidden chemistry. There are bright, white spots gleaming from the bottom of Okator crater. These are not lights, but vast deposits of salt, left behind when briny water from deep underground sublimated into the vacuum. They shine like beacons in the grey landscape, silent evidence that even here, in the cold middle ground of the solar system, there is activity. The salt sits there, white and pure, reflecting the weak sunlight, a quiet contrast to the surrounding darkness. Ceres is also home to Ahuna Mons, a lonely mountain that rises gently from the plains. But this is not a volcano of fire and magma. It is a cryovolcano, a volcano of ice. Eons ago, it oozed salty mud and water ice, building itself up layer by layer in a slow, slushy eruption. Now, it stands frozen and solid, a monument to the cold. The idea of an ice volcano speaks of a slow, creeping geological process where the lava moves with the speed of a glacier and freezes into rock-hard solidity the moment it touches the vacuum. It is a mountain born of the cold, sleeping under a sky that is forever black. The gravity on these smaller worlds is incredibly faint. On a small asteroid like Vesta or Gaspra, gravity is a mere suggestion rather than a law. If you were to toss a pebble gently from your hand, it might never return to the ground. It would simply drift away, entering its own orbit around the sun. This weak grasp creates a feeling of precariousness and freedom. The dust on the surface is barely held down. A simple touch could send a cloud of particles floating upward in slow motion, hanging there for hours before settling back down. It is a delicate environment where the forces that bind things together are tenuous and soft, requiring us to move with the utmost care and slowness. There is a rhythm to this region, dictated by the giant that lies beyond. The gravity of Jupiter, the massive planet waiting in the outer dark, acts as a shepherd to these rocks. It is Jupiter's influence that prevented them from ever coalescing into a single planet. Its gravity tugs at them, nudging them into specific paths, creating gaps in the belt, known as the Kirkwood gaps. These gaps are empty lanes in the highway, zones where the orbital resonance with Jupiter sweeps the space clear. It is a gravitational harmonization, a silent song sung by the giant planet that orchestrates the movement of millions of rocks. They do not move randomly. They move in a choreographed dance, keeping time with the conductor that they cannot even see. Occasionally, two asteroids might pass near each other, but it is a slow, graceful encounter. Their mutual gravity might cause them to dance briefly, swinging around one another in a quiet do-si-do before drifting apart again. These are not violent collisions, but gravitational handshakes, moments of connection in the long loneliness of their orbits. Even when collisions do occur, in the vast timescale of the universe, they are silent events. Two rocks meet, merge, or shatter, creating a cloud of dust that expands slowly, blooming like a grey flower in the void. Over millions of years, the dust settles, the rocks find new paths, and the silence returns. It is a cycle of breaking and reforming that happens so slowly, it appears static to our eyes. The temperature here is dropping. We are far enough from the sun that its warmth is faint. The asteroids are cold, frozen through to their cores. They are worlds of permanent winter, where the temperature hovers hundreds of degrees below zero. This cold is a preservative. It keeps the water ice locked deep inside the rocks, safe from evaporation. It keeps the chemistry frozen in time. It creates a sense of suspended animation, as if the entire region is holding its breath, waiting for a thaw that will never come. The cold is not biting or painful. It is simply the natural state of things, a deep, numbing slumber that wraps the belt in a protective layer of thermal stillness. We can see the rotation of these rocks, and it is a tumble because they are irregular. They wobble as they turn, exposing different faces to the stars. This tumbling motion is hypnotic to watch. It is like watching a piece of driftwood turn slowly in a gentle river current. End over end, side over side, they rotate with a languid, unhurried pace. Some take hours to turn, some take days. There is no rush to finish the rotation. They have been tumbling like this for billions of years, and they will continue to tumble for billions more. It is a motion without a destination, a pure expression of inertia in a frictionless environment. There are families of asteroids here, groups of rocks that share similar orbits and compositions. They are the fragments of larger parent bodies that broke apart eons ago. They traveled together in loose clusters, separated by vast distances, but bound by a shared history. They are the ghosts of worlds that used to be, traveling in a silent convoy. We can imagine them as a scattered flock of birds, flying in formation across the dark sky, moving together through the emptiness. There is a sense of kinship in these families, a subtle connection that links the lonely rocks across the void. The light from the sun is weaker here, a small, brilliant star rather than a blazing disk. The shadows it casts are long and pitch black. On the surface of an asteroid, the transition from day to night is instant. One moment you are in the light, the next you are in the absolute dark. There is no twilight, no dusk, no dawn atmosphere to scatter the rays. This sharp contrast creates a visual simplicity. There are only two states of being, illuminated or hidden. It simplifies the world, stripping away the complexities of color and gradient, leaving only the fundamental truth of light and absence of light. As we drift through the outer edges of the belt, we begin to feel the presence of something larger. The emptiness between the rocks grows even wider. We are leaving the debris field of the inner solar system and entering the realm of the giants. The asteroid belt acts as a natural divide, a rocky shore that separates the warm terrestrial worlds from the cold, gas leviathans. It is a boundary line drawn in stone and dust. Crossing it feels like leaving the harbor and sailing out into the true deep ocean. The water is deeper here, the dark is darker, and the things that swim in the deep are massive beyond comprehension. We look back one last time at the scattered stones. They fade into the background, becoming indistinguishable from the stars. We have navigated the field of debris and found it to be a place of peace, a vast, empty gallery of ancient sculptures. The fear of the collision dissolves, replaced by the understanding of the void. We realize that space is mostly space, and that matter is just a rare, lonely exception. Ahead of us, a new light dominates the darkness. It is not a star, but a planet so large it could swallow all the others combined. It glows with a soft, creamy light, banded with clouds of ammonia and hydrogen. We are approaching the king of the planets. We are drifting towards the endless storms and the crushing gravity of Jupiter. Leaving the scattered archipelago of the asteroid belt, we allow the currents of space to carry us across a vast dark gap until the horizon is filled by a presence of overwhelming magnitude. We have arrived at the king of the planets, Jupiter. It is not merely a planet, it is a solar system within a solar system, a colossal sphere of gas that dominates the darkness with its gravity and its grandeur. To look upon Jupiter is to look upon a world that has no solid ground, a place where the concept of landing does not exist. It is a true gas giant, a bottomless ocean of clouds that thickens slowly, mile after mile, until the gas becomes liquid and the liquid becomes metal. It hangs in the void like a painted marble, banded in stripes of cream, burnt orange, brown, and white, spinning with a speed that defies its size, yet looking utterly still from our vantage point. The atmosphere of Jupiter is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics played out on a galactic scale. We see the famous zones and belts, horizontal stripes that wrap around the entire planet parallel to the equator. These are not static markings. They are vast rivers of wind flowing in opposite directions. The lighter zones are regions of rising gas, cooling and condensing into high-altitude ammonia clouds. while the darker belts are regions where the gas is sinking back down into the warmer depths. They slide past one another with a frictionless grace, creating a mesmerizing pattern of shear and swirl. It is like watching paint being stirred slowly in a massive bucket, the colors stretching and folding but never quite mixing. These winds have been blowing for centuries, trapped in a cycle of perpetual motion that is powered by the heat radiating from the planet's core. Dominating the southern hemisphere is the Great Red Spot, a feature so iconic that it feels like the eye of the planet itself. It is a storm, yes, but to call it a storm feels inadequate. It is a high-pressure anticyclone, larger than the entire Earth. It has been spinning there for at least 300 years, and likely much longer. In a universe of chaos and change, the Great Red Spot is a symbol of stability. It is an oval of crimson and ochre, turning counterclockwise with a slow, majestic rhythm. From our high orbit, we do not see violence. We see a vast, churning wheel, a vortex that has found a perfect equilibrium. It eats smaller storms for breakfast, swallowing them whole to maintain its energy, yet it remains peaceful in its persistence. It is a storm that has forgotten how to stop, a permanent feature of the Jovian landscape that watches the universe with an unblinking red gaze. As we drift closer, descending gently towards the cloud tops, we realize that there is no surface to crash against. On Earth, the sky ends where the ground begins. But on Jupiter, the sky simply becomes the ocean. The atmosphere is made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium, the primordial elements of the Big Bang. As you sink deeper, the gas simply gets thicker. The mist becomes a fog, the fog becomes a slush, and the slush becomes a strange hot liquid. There is no splash, no sudden impact. It is a seamless transition from air to sea. This creates a sensation of infinite depth. To fall into Jupiter is to fall forever, sinking into a gravity well that presses you with a warm, heavy embrace. It is a world where you are always suspended, always held by the density of the medium around you. Deep within this endless ocean, thousands of miles down, the pressure becomes so immense that it forces hydrogen atoms to do something extraordinary. They are squeezed so tightly that they lose their electrons and become a metal. This is the realm of metallic hydrogen, a deep, dark, conducting sea that surrounds the core. It is a substance that exists nowhere on Earth, a liquid metal that churns and flows in the absolute dark. This hidden ocean is the source of Jupiter's immense magnetic field, a dynamo that hums in the silence of the interior. It is the beating heart of the giant, a layer of liquid shielding that protects the secrets of the core from the outside world. It reminds us that the true nature of the planet is hidden deep within, buried under layers of crushing weight and impenetrable cloud. Jupiter is not alone. It is the center of a crowded court. It possesses a retinue of nearly 100 moons, but the four largest, the Galilean moons, perform a dance that is the very definition of celestial harmony. We see Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto orbiting in a flat plane. Their movements are not random. Io, Europa, and Ganymede are locked in a rhythmic orbital resonance of 1, 2, 4. For every 4 orbits Io completes, Europa completes 2, and Ganymede completes 1. This is a cosmic clockwork, a synchronized ballet that repeats over and over again with mathematical precision. Every time they pass each other, they exchange a small gravitational tug, a rhythmic pulse that keeps the system stable. It is music without sound, a pattern of gravity that has been playing for billions of years. We turn our attention to Io, the innermost of the great moons. It is a colorful world of yellow and orange, painted by sulfur. It is the most volcanically active body in the solar system, but from here, the eruptions look like gentle plumes of dust, rising slowly into the vacuum. Io is caught in a gravitational tug-of-war between Jupiter and the other moons. The immense gravity of the giant planet squeezes and stretches Io like a rubber ball, heating its interior through friction. This internal heat keeps the moon alive, forcing it to constantly resurface itself. It is a world that is always making itself new, covering its old scars with fresh layers of lava that cool into colorful plains. It is a testament to the power of gravity to create warmth in the cold dark. Further out lies Europa, a moon that is the complete opposite of Io. It is a sphere of ice, the smoothest object in the solar system. Its surface is a crisscross of cracked lines, looking like a fragile eggshell. Beneath this frozen crust lies a global ocean of liquid water, more water than exists on all of Earth combined. It is a hidden world, a dark, salty sea, protected by miles of ice. We can imagine the silence of that subsurface ocean, a place of eternal blackness where the water currents move slowly, heated by the tidal forces of Jupiter. Europa is a sleeping beauty, a world that keeps its greatest treasure, its water locked away in a vault of ice, safe from the radiation and the cold of space. It suggests that the most precious things are often hidden deep below the surface, waiting to be discovered. Next is Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, even bigger than the planet Mercury. It is a giant in its own right, a mix of ancient dark terrain and younger, lighter grooves. It is the only moon with its own magnetic field, a tiny bubble of protection within the larger bubble of Jupiter. Ganymede feels like a planet that was captured, a king that became a servant. It orbits with a steady, stately dignity, a massive world of ice and rock that anchors the outer part of the resonance. And finally, there is Callisto, the outermost of the four, a dark, battered world covered in more craters than any other object. It is the oldest landscape we can see, a frozen record of the early bombardment. Callisto has not changed in 4 billion years. It is a silent witness, a dusty archive that orbits far enough away to avoid the gravitational drama of the inner moons. It is the peaceful observer on the edge of the dance. Surrounding Jupiter is a faint, ethereal ring system. Unlike the glorious bright rings of Saturn, Jupiter's rings are made of dark dust, visible only when backlit by the sun. They are smoke rings, delicate and tenuous. They are formed by dust kicked up from small moons, drifting into a thin sheet that circles the equator. To see them, you must be in the shadow of the giant, looking back towards the light. They appear as a fine gossamer veil, a subtle decoration that the planet wears almost secretly. They remind us that even the mightiest giants have fragile, delicate features that are easily overlooked. The magnetic field of Jupiter is a structure of immense power and size. If we could see it with our eyes, it would be the largest object in the night sky, bigger than the full moon. It creates a vast cavity in the solar wind, a magnetosphere that stretches out for millions of miles, reaching all the way to the orbit of Saturn. This invisible shield traps charged particles, accelerating them towards the poles, where they create permanent auroras. These are not fleeing lights like on Earth. The auroras of Jupiter are constant, giant halos of electric blue and ultraviolet fire that crown the planet. They burn in the silence of the upper atmosphere, a visual manifestation of the invisible forces that govern the system. They are the neon signs of the giant, always on, always glowing in the dark. Despite its size and its storms, Jupiter rotates with incredible speed. It spins once every 10 hours. This rapid rotation causes the planet to bulge at the equator, giving it a squashed appearance. It pulls the clouds into those long, straight bands. It is a world that is constantly turning, constantly mixing. Yet because it is so large, the movement at the surface seems slow to our eyes. We see the clouds drift, not rush. We see the great red spot turn, not spin. It is a matter of scale. On the scale of Jupiter, speed becomes majestic. The frantic energy is smoothed out by the sheer size of the canvas, becoming a flow that is relaxing to watch. As we linger here, floating in the shadow of the giant, we feel a sense of protection. Jupiter acts as the vacuum cleaner of the solar system, its massive gravity attracting comets and asteroids that might otherwise threaten the inner planets. It takes the hits so we don't have to. It is the guardian, the big brother that stands watch in the dark. There is comfort in its presence, a feeling that the solar system has a heavy anchor that keeps the outer reaches in check. We watch the moons disappear behind the planet and reappear on the other side, a slow game of cosmic peekaboo. We watch the shadows of the moons transit across the cloud tops, small black dots moving perfectly along the bands. Everything here is orderly. Everything here follows the rules of Kepler and Newton with absolute fidelity. It is a clock that never needs winding, a machine that never breaks down. The colors of Jupiter, the ammonia white, the sulfur yellow, the phosphorus red, are muted and pastel in the dim sunlight. They are the colors of an old painting, soft and blended. There are no sharp lines here, only gradients. The boundaries between the zones are fuzzy, distinct yet merging. It is a soft world, a pillow of gas in the hard vacuum. It invites the eye to lose focus, to follow the lines around and around, lulled by the repetition of the rotation. But we must continue our drift. We leave the king and his court, moving further out into the dimming light. We are heading towards the jewel of the solar system, a planet defined not by its storms, but by its stillness and its symmetry. We are traveling towards the Lord of the Rings. Behind us, Jupiter remains, a giant spinning top in the dark, humming its magnetic song to the empty space. Ahead, the most beautiful sight in the heavens awaits us. We leave the colossal presence of Jupiter behind, allowing the deep, silent currents of gravity to guide us further into the dark. As the great king fades into the distance, a new wonder emerges from the shadows, a sight so perfect that it almost looks artificial. Floating ahead is Saturn, the jewel of the solar system, a golden sphere encircled by a vast, shining halo of ice. It is a vision of absolute serenity, a celestial mobile that hangs in the emptiness with a grace that defies description. If Jupiter was a planet of power and mass, Saturn is a planet of elegance and geometry. It tilts gently against the plane of the solar system, displaying its magnificent rings like a brimmed hat made of light, inviting us to come closer and witness the most orderly place in the universe. From a distance, the rings appear to be a solid, continuous sheet, a smooth disk of white and gold. But as we drift closer, descending towards the plane of the equator, the illusion of solidity dissolves into a beautiful, granular reality. The rings are not a single piece of matter. They are composed of billions upon billions of individual particles. These range in size from tiny grains of dust, no larger than flour, to massive boulders the size of houses. They are made almost entirely of water ice, gleaming with a pristine white purity in the sunlight. Each one of these particles is, in effect, a tiny moon, orbiting the planet in its own independent path, Yet they move together in such perfect unison that they create the appearance of a unified whole. It is a blizzard that has been frozen in time, a snowstorm that circles forever without ever falling to the ground. The sheer scale of the rings is difficult to comprehend, but their thinness is what makes them truly miraculous. They stretch out for hundreds of thousands of miles, wide enough to fit several Earths side by side, yet in many places they are only about 30 feet thick. Imagine a sheet of paper that covers an entire city. That is the proportion of Saturn's rings. They are a razor-thin veil of ice, balanced perfectly on the knife edge of gravity. This incredible thinness means that when we look at the rings edge on, they almost disappear completely, becoming a ghostly line drawn across the stars. It is a structure of immense fragility, held together by the delicate balance of orbital mechanics. It teaches us that something can be vast and imposing, while simultaneously being delicate and fine. There is a profound silence within the rings. Despite the billions of tumbling ice rocks, there is no chaotic crashing, no grinding noise of stone against stone. The particles are moving in parallel lanes, traveling at the same speed as their neighbors. It is like a highway with infinite lanes, where every car is moving at exactly the same velocity. Because there is no relative difference in speed, there are no violent collisions. Occasionally, two particles might gently bump into one another, a soft kiss that barely nudges them off course. They drift together, separate, and continue their long circular journey. It is a flow of matter that behaves more like a fluid than a solid, a river of ice that flows around the planet in total silence. Within this broad expanse of white, there are gaps, dark lanes, where the rings seem to be missing. The largest of these is the Cassini division, a wide river of darkness that separates the A ring from the B ring. It looks like an empty void, a gap in the record. But even here, there is order. The gap is created by the gravitational resonance of a distant moon, Mimas, which tugs at the particles and clears the lane. It is a negative space, a pause in the music. It reminds us that the empty spaces are just as important as the filled spaces in creating the pattern. The darkness defines the light. The silence defines the sound. The gap defines the ring. Guiding these rings are the shepherd moons, small, humble satellites, like Pan and Daphnis, that orbit within the gaps. We watch them drift slowly through the ice field. As they move, their gravity gently pushes the particles back into line, pruning the edges of the rings to keep them sharp. They create waves in the ring material, ripples that spiral out, like the wake of a boat moving through a calm lake. These waves are thousands of miles long, silent undulations in the sea of ice. The shepherd moons are the caretakers of this garden, working tirelessly and invisibly to maintain the perfection of the structure. They show us that order is not accidental. It is maintained by gentle, constant attention. We turn our gaze to the planet itself. Saturn is a ball of hydrogen and helium, much like Jupiter, but its colors are softer, more muted. It is painted in shades of pale gold, beige, and cream. The bands of clouds are there, but they are hidden beneath a thick, high-altitude haze that softens everything. It looks like a watercolor painting where the artist has used plenty of water to blend the edges. The storms here are deep and hidden, covered by the upper layers of mist. It is a shy planet, veiling its turmoil under a facade of calm gold. The light that reflects off Saturn is warm and soothing, a soft glow that feels less intense than the glare of the inner solar system. At the north pole of this golden world lies one of the solar system's greatest mysteries, the hexagon. It is a six-sided jet stream, a perfect geometric shape formed by the winds. Each side of the hexagon is wider than the Earth. It spins counterclockwise, a massive, silent shape that has persisted for decades. In nature, we expect circles and spirals, but here we find straight lines and sharp angles. It is a symbol of mathematical precision, a reminder that the laws of physics can create order out of chaos. The center of the hexagon is a dark eye, a deep vortex that looks down into the planet's interior. It turns slowly, methodically, a shape of logic in a world of gas. Deep inside Saturn, far below the golden clouds, something extraordinary is happening in the dark. The pressure and heat are so intense that the methane in the atmosphere is crushed and broken down. The carbon atoms are squeezed together until they crystallize, turning into diamonds. It is raining diamonds on Saturn, but this is not a violent storm. In the dense, hot fluid of the interior, these diamonds drift downward slowly, like glittering snow falling in the deep ocean. They are beautiful, uncut gems, sparkling in the absolute darkness where no human eye will ever see them. They fall towards the core, melting eventually into a sea of liquid carbon. It is a hidden wealth, a secret beauty that the planet keeps to itself. It suggests that deep within us all, under layers of pressure, there may be precious things forming in the dark. Orbiting this magnificent system is Titan, a moon so large it rivals planets. It is wrapped in a thick, orange smog that hides its surface. It is the only moon with a dense atmosphere. As we drift by, we can imagine the surface below, a cold world of hydrocarbon lakes and rivers. But unlike the water on Earth, these are lakes of liquid methane and ethane, still and smooth as glass. The rain on Titan falls in slow motion due to the low gravity and thick air, with large drops drifting down like parachutes. It is a silent orange twilight world, a quiet echo of Earth frozen in a deep freeze. Further out is Enceladus, a tiny, bright moon made of pure white ice. It is the most reflective object in the solar system. At its south pole, we see jets of water vapor spraying silently into space. These are geysers, venting from a subsurface ocean. The water freezes instantly into fine ice crystals, some of which fall back as snow, while others escape to form the E-ring of Saturn. Enceladus is a small engine of creation, quietly adding to the beauty of its parent planet. It is a humble moon, giving of itself to build the rings, a silent contributor to the grand design. The seasons on Saturn are long and slow. Because of its tilt, the rings open and close to our view over the course of their 29-year orbit. Sometimes we see them fully open, glorious and wide. Other times, they are edge-on, invisible. This cycle is a slow breathing of the geometry, a decades-long transformation that changes the character of the planet. Currently, we are drifting in a season of stillness, watching the rings bask in the distant sunlight. The shadows of the rings are cast onto the planet's clouds, creating dark, striped bars across the gold. And the shadow of the planet is cast across the rings, cutting a black wedge out of the white circle. These shadows move imperceptibly, marking the passage of time on a clock face that measures centuries. As we linger in the shadow of the rings, looking back toward the sun, we see the fine dust light up, creating a halo of ethereal beauty. We are floating in the most peaceful neighborhood of the galaxy. The spacing of the moonlets, the flow of the ice, the rotation of the hexagon, everything is synchronized. It is a mechanical lullaby, a system that works with such smooth precision that it induces a state of deep relaxation. There is no friction here. There is no resistance. There is only the flow. Saturn teaches us the beauty of boundaries and the elegance of structure. It shows us that matter can be organized into a form that is both massive and light. It reminds us that even in the cold void, nature seeks to create patterns of stunning complexity. We feel a reluctance to leave this place of perfect balance. It is a sanctuary of geometry, a temple of ice and gas. But the outer dark is calling. Beyond the golden glow of Saturn, the solar system becomes colder, darker, and stranger. We must drift towards the ice giants, the worlds that roll on their sides and whisper in the deep freeze. We turn away from the rings, letting them become a flat line in the distance, a coin of gold spinning in the night. Ahead of us lies a pale blue-green disk, a planet that has fallen over and sleeps on its side. We are drifting towards the quiet, frozen mystery of Uranus. We leave the golden perfection of Saturn and its rings behind, watching them shrink into a precious, shining coin in the distance. We are now traveling into the deep outer solar system, a region where the sunlight is weak and the shadows are long. The warmth of the inner planets is a distant memory here. As we drift through the widening silence, a new shape emerges from the dark, a pale, ghostly orb that glows with a soft ethereal light. This is Uranus, the first of the ice giants. Unlike the banded, stormy faces of Jupiter and Saturn, Uranus presents a face of absolute calm. It is a nearly featureless sphere of pale blue-green, a color so cool and serene that it looks like a drop of frozen seawater suspended in the void. It hangs there, motionless to the eye, a silent mystery wrapped in a thick haze of methane. The color of Uranus is a study in tranquility. The atmosphere is composed mainly of hydrogen and helium, but it is the methane gas in the upper layers that gives the planet its signature hue. Methane absorbs the red wavelengths of the sunlight, allowing only the blue and green light to scatter back into space. This creates a specific shade of cyan, an aquamarine tint that feels medicinal and soothing. It is not a vibrant electric blue, but a muted pastel tone, like the color of ice in a deep glacier or the sky on a cold winter morning. Looking at it feels like pressing a cold compress to a fevered forehead. It radiates a visual temperature that cools the mind instantly. There are no swirling stripes, no angry red spots, just a smooth, unbroken expanse of pale azure that invites the eyes to rest without distraction. But the most remarkable feature of Uranus is not its color, but its posture. Every other planet in the solar system spins like a top, with its equator roughly parallel to its orbital path. Uranus, however, is the great sleeper of the family. It rotates on its side. Its axis is tilted at an angle of 90 degrees, meaning it is essentially lying down as it orbits the Sun. Astronomers believe that long ago, in the violent early days of the solar system, a massive protoplanet collided with Uranus, knocking it over. But in our quiet observation tonight, we do not see violence. We see a planet that has simply chosen to rest. It does not spin upright. It rolls. It moves through space like a ball rolling along a smooth floor, a motion that feels lazy, relaxed, and infinitely slow. This unique tilt creates the most extreme seasons in the solar system, seasons that are defined by their slowness and their length. Because the planet is lying on its side, its poles face the Sun directly. For a quarter of its orbit, the North Pole points right at the star, bathing in continuous weak daylight, while the South Pole is plunged into absolute unbreaking darkness. This lasts for 21 Earth years. Imagine a summer day that stretches on for 2 decades, where the Sun circles overhead in small loops but never sets. Then imagine a winter night that lasts just as long, 21 years of total darkness, where the stars never fade. To live here would be to live in a world where time is measured in lifetimes. The cycle of day and night as we know it is gone, replaced by a generational shift from light to dark. It is a rhythm so drawn out that it feels like a geological era rather than a calendar year. Currently, we are drifting past a planet that feels locked in a deep freeze. Uranus is often referred to as an ice giant, but this term is slightly misleading in a poetic sense. It is not a solid rock of ice like a snowball. Instead, it is composed of a hot, dense fluid of icy materials, water, methane, and ammonia, flowing around a small rocky core. It is a slushy, viscous ocean that makes up the bulk of the planet's mass. But on the outside, in the upper atmosphere, the temperatures are bone-chillingly cold. In fact, Uranus is often colder than Neptune, despite being closer to the Sun. It has the coldest planetary atmosphere in the solar system, dropping to temperatures that freeze time itself. This is because Uranus generates almost no internal heat, unlike Jupiter and Saturn, which radiate warmth from their cores. Uranus is thermodynamically quiet. It is a cold body in a cold room, hoarding what little energy it has, sleeping in a state of thermal hibernation. As we drift closer, we might catch a glimpse of the planet's ring system. Unlike the glorious, bright rings of Saturn, the rings of Uranus are dark, narrow, and faint. They are made of dark particles, perhaps processed by radiation until they are as black as charcoal. They are the ghosts of rings, difficult to see, shy, and retiring. Because of the planet's tilt, these rings do not circle the equator horizontally, they circle vertically. They look like a celestial target board, with the planet as the bullseye and the rings standing upright like an archery target. This vertical orientation adds to the surreal, dreamlike quality of the world. It looks like a diagram that has been drawn incorrectly, a playful subversion of the rules of planetary alignment. The rings drift around the planet like the rim of a Ferris wheel, turning slowly in the dark, carrying their dark stones in a silent vertical loop. Orbiting this toppled world is a collection of moons with names drawn not from mythology, but from literature. They are named after the spirits and fairies of Shakespeare and Pope Titania, Oberon, Umbriel, Ariel, and Miranda. These moons are small, icy worlds that share the planet's extreme tilt. They orbit the equator, which means they too circle vertically, moving up and over the planet rather than around its waist. Watching them is like watching the hands of a clock that has fallen off the wall. They spin at a strange angle, keeping time for a world that has no need for schedules. We drift past Miranda, the strangest of the moons. It looks like a jigsaw puzzle that was put together by someone in the dark. Its surface is a jumble of mismatched terrains, smooth plains next to cratered highlands, separated by massive faults and canyons. It possesses the tallest cliff in the solar system, Verona Rupes. This cliff is a sheer drop of over 12 miles. In the low gravity of Miranda, if you were to drop a stone from the top, it would take over 10 minutes to reach the bottom. It would fall silently, drifting down through the vacuum, a slow-motion descent into the dark. Miranda is a frozen collage, a world that looks like it was broken apart and reassembled, now frozen in a permanent state of disarray. It is a monument to the idea that things do not need to be perfect to be whole. Then there is Umbriel, the darkest of the major moons. It reflects only about half as much light as the others, a shadowy presence that blends into the background. It is a world of old, cratered ice, a silent observer that keeps to the shadows. And Titania, the largest, a queen of ice, scarred by canyons that suggest it once expanded, stretching its skin as it froze. These moons are silent companions, a literary court attending a sleeping king, moving in their vertical paths with a quiet, dramatic grace. The atmosphere of Uranus is not completely static, though it appears that way. There are winds that blow at hundreds of miles per hour, but they blow in the same direction as the rotation, carrying the clouds along in smooth laminar flows. Occasionally, a bright white cloud will pop up, a sudden bloom of methane ice crystals catching the sunlight. But it soon fades back into the haze. These fleeting features are like brief dreams in a long sleep, momentary flashes of activity in a mind that is mostly resting. For the most part, the face of Uranus remains a blank canvas, a pale blue mirror that reflects nothing but the emptiness of space. There is a magnetic field here, but like everything else on Uranus, it is strange and askew. The magnetic axis is tilted 60 degrees away from the rotation axis, and it doesn't even pass through the center of the planet. It is a lopsided, wobbling magnetic field that tumbles wildly as the planet rotates. This creates a complex, corkscrew-shaped magnetosphere that twists and turns in the solar wind. We cannot see this invisible struggle, but we can imagine the magnetic lines tangling and untangling in the dark, a secret, chaotic dance happening around a planet that looks so calm. It is a reminder that even in the most peaceful things, there can be hidden complexities, internal currents that do not show on the surface. The distance from the Sun is immense, nearly 2 billion miles. From here, the Sun is just a very bright point of light, providing very little warmth. The daylight on Uranus is 350 times fainter than on Earth. It is a perpetual twilight. Even at high noon, the light is dim, like the moment just after sunset on Earth. This low light contributes to the sleepy atmosphere. It is a world of eternal dusk, a place where the lights are always dimmed, signaling that it is time to rest. There is no glare to hurt the eyes, no heat to burn the skin. There is only the cool blue shadow of the outer system. Uranus was the first planet to be discovered by a telescope, a world that was hidden from the ancients. It remained a secret for thousands of years, floating in the dark, unnoticed. It prefers anonymity. It does not demand attention like Jupiter or dazzle like Saturn. It simply exists in its own tilted, frozen reality. It teaches us the value of being different, of finding a posture that works for you, even if it means lying down while everyone else stands up. It validates the need for retreat, for turning away from the center and finding peace in the periphery. As we linger here, we feel the profound isolation of this world. It is a hermit planet, wrapped in a cloak of cyan mist, rolling alone through the black. But in this isolation, there is a deep sense of peace. The noise of the inner solar system cannot reach this far. The solar wind is a gentle breeze here. The gravity is manageable. It is a place of suspension, a blue bubble of silence where we can float and let go of all orientation. Up and down do not matter here. Sideways is the new normal. We watch the vertical rings turn one last time, admiring their faint, dusty geometry. We watch the pale blue disk hang against the stars. We are almost at the end of our journey. There is one more major stop, one more giant waiting in the deep freeze. It is the twin of this world, but bluer, windier, and even further away. We turn our backs on the sleeping giant, letting its pale light fade into the darkness behind us. We drift outward, towards the very edge of the planetary realm. Ahead lies the deep, dark blue of Neptune, the planet of the winds, waiting at the threshold of the interstellar night. We drift away from the pale, tilted mystery of Uranus, moving deeper into the twilight. The distance between worlds is vast here, a silent ocean of emptiness that stretches for billions of miles. We travel through this dark corridor until, finally, a deep, saturated color begins to manifest in the void. Ahead of us lies Neptune, the final giant, the sentinel at the gate of the solar system. While Uranus was a pale, shy cyan, Neptune is a bold, striking azure, a vivid royal blue that looks like the deepest part of the Earth's ocean poured into a sphere. It is a planet of intense, hypnotic color, hanging alone in the outer dark, illuminated by a sun that is now merely a brilliant point of light, too far away to provide any real heat. Neptune is the windy planet, the stormy brother of the outer realm. But from our vantage point in the stillness of space, it appears perfectly calm, a smooth marble of blue glass spinning silently in the cold. Despite being the farthest major planet from the warmth of the sun, it possesses the fastest winds in the entire solar system. These are supersonic winds racing at speeds of over 1,200 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound on Earth. They whip the clouds of frozen methane into elongated streaks that race around the equator. Yet because the scale of the planet is so immense, and because we are watching from the vacuum, this violence is translated into a slow, elegant visual flow. We see bright white clouds, known as scooters, drifting across the blue face like whitecaps on a distant sea. They move with a steady, relentless determination, powered by a mysterious internal heat source that churns the atmosphere from deep within. It is a silent symphony of motion, where the fiercest gales look like gentle brushstrokes on a canvas of indigo. Occasionally, the deep blue is interrupted by a great dark spot, a massive storm system similar to Jupiter's red spot, but shadowy and fleeting. These spots are holes in the upper cloud deck that allow us to look deeper into the atmosphere. They appear and disappear over the span of years, forming, drifting, and then dissolving back into the blue. They are like transient thoughts in the mind of the planet, moods that darken the face for a season and then fade away. Watching a dark spot traverse the disk of Neptune is like watching a cloud shadow move across a mountain valley. It is a slow, creeping darkness that adds depth and mystery to the view. It reminds us that even at the edge of the system, the universe is dynamic, constantly reshaping itself in the dark. Orbiting this blue world is Triton, a moon that does not belong. It is the only large moon in the solar system that orbits in a retrograde direction, moving opposite to the planet's rotation. This suggests that Triton was not born here. It was a wanderer, a dwarf planet from the outer dark that ventured too close and was captured by Neptune's gravity long ago. It is a prisoner of the giant, locked in a backward dance forever. Triton is a world of extreme cold, one of the coldest objects we have ever measured. Its surface is a frozen landscape of nitrogen ice, looking like the skin of a cantaloupe, wrinkled and textured. Despite the freezing temperatures, Triton is alive in its own quiet way. We can see cryovolcanoes, geysers that erupt, not with fire, but with liquid nitrogen and dark dust. These plumes rise straight up into the thin atmosphere and then are carried sideways by the wind, creating long, dark streaks on the ice. It is a silent, black snow falling on a white world, a geological whisper from a captured soul. Neptune also possesses rings, but they are dark and clumpy, unlike the smooth sheets of Saturn. They are composed of dust and small rocks that have darkened over eons. We call them arcs, because in some places the ring material is thick and in others it is almost invisible. They look like broken lines drawn around the planet, faint sketches of circles that were never finished. These rings are fragile and temporary on cosmic timescales, dust that is slowly spiraling inward. They add a delicate spectral beauty to the giant, faint halos that can only be seen when the angle of the light is just right. They teach us that beauty does not always need to be bright or complete. Sometimes the faint, broken things are the most mesmerizing. As we drift past Neptune, we are crossing a significant threshold. We are leaving the realm of the planets behind. The familiar map of the solar system, with its 8 distinct worlds, ends here. But the solar system itself does not end. Beyond Neptune lies the Kuiper belt, a vast donut-shaped region of space filled with icy bodies, dwarf planets, and frozen remnants of creation. It is the attic of the solar system, the place where the leftovers were stored and forgotten. We drift into this twilight zone, where the darkness is pervasive and the objects are few and far between. Here we find Pluto, the beloved former planet, a world of heart-shaped glaciers and reddish mountains. From our drifting perspective, Pluto is a complex world of nitrogen ice that flows like slow-moving lava. We see the Sputnik Planitia, a vast, smooth plain of white ice that looks like a frozen heart. It is a landscape without craters, meaning the surface is young and constantly refreshing itself. Even out here, 4 billion miles from the Sun, there is geological life. The ice churns slowly, turning over millions of years, erasing the scars of the past. Pluto orbits with its companion Charon, the two locked in a binary dance where they face each other eternally. They spin around a common center of gravity, a waltz of two frozen souls holding hands in the dark. We drift past other silent giants of the belt. Haumea, the spinning football-shaped rock. Makemake, the reddish frozen world. And Eris, the dense white sphere far in the distance. These are the kings and queens of the deep freeze, worlds that have spent their entire existence in the shadows. They are so far from the sun that the star looks like nothing more than the brightest star in the sky. If you stood on the surface of Eris, you could block out the sun with the head of a pin held at arm's length. The daylight here is no brighter than a full moon on Earth. It is a land of perpetual shadow, where the cold is absolute and the silence is thick. The objects here are time capsules. They are made of the pristine material that formed the solar system, preserved in a deep freeze that has lasted for 4.5 billion years. They have not been melted, altered, or touched by the heat of the inner system. To look at a Kuiper belt object is to look at the baby pictures of our cosmic neighborhood. They are simple, honest, and quiet. They float in their long, elliptical orbits, taking hundreds of years to complete a single circle. A year here is longer than the history of some nations on Earth. Time is stretched thin, becoming almost meaningless. Further out, beyond the Kuiper belt, we reached the heliopause. This is the true edge, the cliff of our solar system. It is the boundary where the solar wind, the stream of particles from the sun, finally loses its strength and pushes against the interstellar medium, the gas and dust of the galaxy. It is an invisible bubble, a membrane that separates us from them. Crossing this line means leaving home entirely. It means entering the vast, uncharted ocean of interstellar space. The silence here is different. It is the silence of the void between stars, a silence that is deeper and older than anything we have experienced. At this edge, we look back. The planets are gone, lost in the glare of the central star. The sun itself is just a bright point, barely distinguishable from the other stars of the Milky Way. We realize how small our home truly is. It is a tiny, warm bubble floating in a vast, cold galaxy. But this realization is not frightening. It is comforting. It means that our problems, our worries, and our busy lives are contained within a very small, very safe sphere. The rest of the universe is just empty, peaceful space. We have reached the end of the line. We have traveled from the burning core to the frozen edge. We have seen the slow turn of the rocks, the flow of the gas, and the drift of the ice. The journey has been long, and the sights have been steady. The motion of the universe is not a frantic race, but a slow, confident expansion. Everything has its place. Everything has its orbit. Everything is held. The Kuiper belt fades behind us, a ring of frozen dust guarding the system. We are floating in the quietest place imaginable, suspended in the velvet dark, with the entire solar system behind us and the infinite stars ahead. It is time to rest here, at the edge of all things, where the gravity is weak and the peace is strong. Thank you for drifting through the solar system with me tonight. We have traveled an immense distance, moving from the blinding brilliance of our central star to the frozen, silent edges of the interstellar night. We have wandered through ancient starlight and unseen forces, feeling the quiet, turning motion of our cosmic home. Along the way, we have witnessed that the universe is not a place of chaos, but a place of profound order and deep. We have seen that even the largest giants and the fiercest winds look like peaceful works of art when viewed from the safety of the drift. It is a comfort to know that while we rest, these great worlds continue their slow, majestic dances. The sun will continue to burn with its steady patience. The rocks of Mercury will continue their long slumber. The clouds of Venus will keep their secrets wrapped in gold. Mars will hold its red dust in the quiet. Jupiter and Saturn will spin their vast storms into bands of beauty, and the ice giants will roll through the dark in their frozen silence. This machinery does not require our attention to function. It does not need us to worry about it, to wind it up, or to manage it. It simply is. It exists in a state of permanent grace, governed by laws that are older than time and stronger than stone. You are a part of this system, not separate from it. The atoms that make up your body were forged in the same stellar fires that created the planets. The gravity that holds the Earth in its orbit is the same force that holds you safely in your bed. You are the universe arranged in a pattern that can breathe, think, and rest. Just as the planets surrender to the pull of the sun, you can now surrender to the pull of sleep. You can trust the bed to hold you, just as the fabric of space-time holds the worlds. This is your own internal orbit, a cycle of peace that anchors you in the present moment. Let your mind release the need to understand or remember anything we have discussed. Let the facts and the figures float away, like dust motes in a sunbeam. You do not need to know the speed of the winds or the composition of the clouds. All you need to know is that the universe is vast and you are safe within it. The questions that science has not yet answered are not burdens. They are soft pillows for your thoughts. Resting in the knowledge that mystery itself is a kind of lullaby, you can let go of the need for certainty and simply float in the wonder of it all. The night is long, and it belongs to you. The stars are keeping watch overhead, shining with their ancient, steady light. The planets are turning in their sleep. Everything is exactly where it is supposed to be. There is no rush. There is no deadline. There is only this moment of pure, uninterrupted rest. Allow your thoughts to become formless and fluid. Let them drift like the clouds on Jupiter, changing shape slowly, dissolving into one another without resistance. If a thought comes, let it pass like a comet, visible for a moment and then fading into the dark. You are sinking deeper now, past the layer of dreams towards the deep, restorative ocean of sleep. It is a dark, warm ocean, similar to the one beneath the ice of Europa, a place of total stillness where the waters are calm and the silence is absolute. You have done enough for today. Your mind has done enough work. The universe will continue its dance. The stars will continue their long, slow orbits, and the sun will rise again in the morning without you needing to lift a finger. For now, your only task is to let go. Close your eyes, rest, and dream of a quiet, radiant sea of stars. Good night.